Oh, that was
Sorry, Coach.
that was Marty.
That was me, Coach. It was me.
Yeah.
I think she tied up too.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the work for you doing.
Thanks.
That backdrop. You want to shift it a bit?
No, we're good.
Good. Thanks all.
Rolling.
Joe, to start with James O'Connor, can you talk about the sort of rationale behind bringing him in, and at what stage you sort of started conversations with him about joining the squad?
Well, I've been talking to James for a long time, right through the Super Rugby season, so it's not that far away from where we started. Obviously, we started with Noah, and with his injury, we needed to replace him, and our 10s are young and experienced anyway. So to get James to come in, talk to Tom Liner a little bit around the influence he had on him and his development, and that was really positive. Talk to David Havili, who's obviously in with the AUNZ team at the moment, and I've coached Davey and would have a lot of time for Davey's opinion, and he said that James was a real help with the two young 10s at the Crusaders. So from that perspective, it was they were positives, and at the same time, James of his own right had played pretty solidly, coming on in the back end of games, mostly for the Crusaders.
8 days for the first test. James hasn't been around the camp in 2025. Is that enough time for him to sort of get up to speed with what you want to be playing?
Yeah, we've had a few conversations during the year, as I said. So he's not completely separated from what we're doing. He will be playing catch up, but he's experienced enough to catch up pretty quickly. And I know talking to Les Kiss and Ian Foster this week that they've only had a week with the AUNZ team, and a lot of those guys have come together pretty quickly. So we'd be hoping that one player added to our squad can pick things up pretty quickly. And it's the same with Josh Canham. Obviously, he's spent a bit more time with us in recent times.
It's rare that in a squad you have multiple people that have Lions experience, but you now have that with both Slips and O'Connor. How invaluable is it having those guys, seasoned veterans who know what it is to sort of face a Lions and face an atmosphere that is unlike anything else, really?
Yeah, I think it's probably similar to World Cup. So I've been in enough Lions tests without being in coaches' boxes, and the volume of noise, everything's ramped up. The microscope you're under, the pressure you feel, and for those guys just to relieve that pressure valve just a little bit, I think will be useful for us. And at the same time, if they perceive it's needed, they'll be able to ramp the boys up a little bit, because we're going to need to be to combat a very strong Lions side who've got strength and depth.
You did have Tay Nedmed training with the squad, but you've gone for James, obviously, you want experience. What specifically are you after from him in these 3 weeks?
Just a calm voice and a voice of experience. One of the things I've learned in a long coaching career, it seems like a long time ago that I started, is that there's a lot of player-to-player coaching, particularly when you've got good players with good experience. And so, the time that he can spend out just reviewing training sessions or decisions with the 10s, I think that will be really useful for us. And he sees the game well. And, I think experience allows you to see the game a little bit better, just because you've experienced some circumstances where you've made good or bad decisions, or the game has swung on moments where you've had to make decisions, and having been there and done that, he can pass on that experience, and as I said, in a pretty calm manner. He knows Tom Liner and Ben Donaldson well enough that he will pick those two guys up and be really useful, I think.
Yellow wasn't named. Is he lucky to be in, or was he always named?
Yeah, I didn't have that discussion with him. So if that was a perception he had, then hopefully that's a motivation for him. He is in, and it's a massive opportunity for him. And at the same time, it's probably something that he wants to be challenged on, and make sure he does put his best foot forward.
On the flip side, Noah missing out because of injury. How much did that hurt, just seeing his growth under you for 12 months? And I guess, can you go through that timeline of, you comes off. I think the initial update was he was sort of up in the sheds asking if he'd won and then has to go into surgery.
Yeah, and those things, you know, that they happen like that sometimes. Perception of injury, you know, symptoms don't always reveal the full extent of an injury, and so symptomatically he seemed to be recovering quite quickly, but you know, diagnostically it was felt best that he undergo some surgery, and so post that nothing happened quickly. There was a lot of reflection, a lot of discussions amongst the coaches, some discussions with some players, and then the final decision. James was unaware that he'd been selected until I saw him this morning, and he was actually just in passing talking to some of the players, and the players said to him, "Oh, wow, great that you're back in the fold," and he said, "Oh no, I was just in town and saw you guys and thought I'd have a chat." And I said, "No, you're back in the fold," and so he's pretty happy to be in the fold, and immediately as a spring in his step, which is great.
Did he think you were a bit of a wind-up, or did he take you seriously, or what?
Yeah, he did. He said that, and the two boys who were with me just looked at him and said, "No, he doesn't joke," which I took to heart, really. You know, I wouldn't say I'm completely humorless, but maybe that self-awareness needs to be a little bit deeper.
So what was James's reaction when the sentence got?
You're kidding. That was his reaction, and I think he was pretty happy. He certainly ducked off pretty quickly to get his gear and come back again. So, yeah, the thing was, we'd had discussions earlier in the week. We'd had discussions before the Fiji squad was named. It's not as sudden as you know, as this morning's discussion, in that there had been ongoing discussions, but some of those discussions had been with you know, other options as well. But we settled on James. Just even coming to Suncorp, it's a ground he knows really well, and the experience that he brings just seemed for us in a very short runway, as Jamie said before, you know, in 8 days, or can he slot in? We felt that he was probably best positioned to do that. Yeah, very good, very good. You know, we'll have a light run here this afternoon post this, and Tom and Jake will take full part in that, and as will everyone. So everyone's due to train, and it'll be my challenge to train them hard and not have any other injuries. So you know, that's the fine balance, and we know it's going to be incredibly tough. So we need to, I suppose, rev the engine a little bit and get straight into our work. Yeah, potentially that is incredibly special. I think it's the first father-son. So you know, it's been great over the last 18 months. There's been some really nice little milestones that have occurred, and that would be another great one. You know, George Smith was just ribbing me about, you know, he was the only one. Now he's one of three. So those milestones, they're pretty special in a player's career. And while we acknowledge them, the players, they just want to get on and get prepared and make sure that what is a milestone becomes a really memorable one for the right reasons.
No captain announced. Can you talk us through your thought process?
Again, we just want to get through the week far enough to announce a captain that's fully fit. You know, a couple of the guys that have captained us recently have had a few knocks, and so we just want to be sure that once we nominate a captain, he's going to be there to follow through. I think when you nominate someone and then they're not able to train fully, or they're not available for the game, just probably dilutes the authority of the guy who does have that responsibility on game day. So we're just gonna maybe just hold our fire for another few days and also see how this squad settles and then make a decision from there.
So Harry's got a niggle, does he?
No, Harry had a couple of dings, but talking to him today, he's great. But again, it's not until they actually report for duty that you get a hands-on look at them, and he did have a few dings from the game last Sunday, and so you just don't want to, and we didn't have to. We'd rather just, there's not a lot of things we can take our time with. We're under pressure, it's a short runway, but that's one of the things that we just think we can take a couple of days and make sure we feel comfortable that we're getting it right. Obviously, Harry has led us a number of times recently, so he'd be one of the players at the forefront of our thinking.
I'll just finally go. The Lions started with a roar, and they've had a couple of close games. But what have you made of their score and where they're at?
Look, I've coached against them with a provincial side and Bay of Plenty, just an NPC team, and been 17 all at half time, and then they got away to win by 12 points, I think. But when it came to the test, they were a different beast, and I do think that that's when they really ramp it up. I think during a tour, if you go to the emotional well and the physical well every 4 or 5 days throughout the tour, I do think you start to probably dilute your ability to really hit the top level. And I think, look, I've coached with Andy for enough years. He'll have them simmering at the moment. But I've no doubt that come Saturday week, they'll be at the boil.